Pelosi.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I was settling in, getting ready for your distinguished Vice Chairman's 20 minutes of questioning, but pleased to be recognized.
We thank Senator Shelby.
I'll yield my time to Congressman.
Well, I'll just take...
Only this morning, though. You know.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Welcome, Mr. Secretary. Mr. Secretary, thank you for your presentations this morning. My questions spring largely from some of your comments here today. Some of them I don't need answers to. I just want to make some observations, and then I do have a couple of questions. First of all, I was interested in your drain the swamp comment, that in order to fight terrorism, we had to drain the swamp. And it was interesting to me because as was said earlier, the Hamas and the Hezbollah are an important part of terrorism in the world. And as we know, there's significant support from Iran for terrorism. And I wondered if that was the next swamp that we were planning to drain, if there were any other swamps that you might like to mention as well.
Wasn't talking about anything specific. I'm trying to make the point that we're not going to be able to have intelligence that is so perfect that we can find every snake in the place.
I understand, but
and
you related
it.
to the
and
Iraq
I think
situation.
The point, and maybe you weren't here when I said it, and I think it bears repeating. For roughly the last 20 years, or maybe even longer, we viewed terrorism as an evil, but...
Mr. Secretary, I understand I only have 5 minutes, and I was here. I just missed the first couple of minutes of Mr. Boswell's. But my point is you were mentioning that in the context of Iraq. We have a responsibility to the American people to protect them. We all want to work together to do that. We all stand with the President in the war on terrorism. That is the war that we are in. And I would not like to see us undertake any initiatives that would jeopardize the cooperation we have with the countries in the world in the war on terrorism, that put our forces, which force protection is one of our primary responsibilities in intelligence. So if we are talking about going after the al-Qaeda and the support that we need to do that, my concern is that, and I didn't have any intention of talking about Iraq today, it's not the subject of this hearing. The subject of this hearing is rooting out terrorism. Now, you want to talk about it in a larger sense and relate it to a different initiative. But we're trying to figure out how we can improve our intelligence gathering so we understand plans and intentions to protect the American people better and to assure the families of those who are affected that this won't happen again. The suffering they have experienced won't be experienced by others. So in terms of that, if we were to go into Iraq, do you feel confident that we have the intelligence capability going into a different place as we are engaged in the war on terrorism to protect our troops when we go in there, if we were to go in there in a matter of weeks?
I mean, we didn't come here to discuss our military plans in Iraq.
I understand that, but you brought it up, and I specifically advised my colleagues this isn't about Iraq. But you spent your testimony quoting Secretary Rumsfeld's testimony from yesterday to another committee about Iraq when we're here to talk about how we best fight the war on terrorism in relationship to 9/11. And I want to be respectful of you. I hope that you will extend my best wishes to the Secretary, as you will to Secretary Powell, and tell them that our invitation stands for them to come here and answer these questions as well. But let me be more specific, Mr. Secretary Wolfowitz. You, in your, again, going back to your comments, in page 3 of your testimony, you say, lessons learned from September 11th, and the important point that you make is that you quoted Thomas Schelling's novel, a foreword to Roberta Wohlsetter's superb book, Pearl Harbor. And in it you said, you quote it, this is in your statement, surprise when it happens in a government, to a government is likely to be complicated, diffuse, bureaucratic. It includes neglect of responsibility, but also responsibility so poorly defined or so ambiguously delegated that action gets lost. My question to you is, when you used that quote, are you saying that this September 11th happened because it included neglect of responsibility, and if so, what? Responsibility so poorly defined, if so, what? And so ambiguously delegated that action gets lost. Could you address your own statement relating to this inquiry.
I'm not trying to say everything in that quote pertains to September 11th. I think everything in that quote pertains to the problem of the future and
No,
how
I'm just
one
talking
avoids,
about what you quoted. I didn't say everything in the
how one
book.
avoids surprise. And one of the points that he makes there, and I think it's crucial, and I think it's actually by now widely accepted, that in addition to failures that may have existed to get information, for example, out of the Phoenix FBI, there is a problem which I think we're trying to address now with the new Department of Homeland Security of assigning responsibility so that not only is that we get beyond this issue of simply who neglected responsibilities, but make sure that the responsibility is pinned somewhere so that it gets done. Because unless you identify people as responsible, there's a tendency to say, oh, well, that's not my job, someone else is taking care of it.
That's a very good point, and I wondered if you would like to be specific in that regard, because you're using the quote that this was, are you saying that it was a September 11th is a neglect of responsibility?
I didn't say that. I
No,
said,
but I mean, you used that quote, though. You said it includes neglect of responsibility.
The import of that quote is to say that problems often arise even though people are taking their responsibilities perfectly seriously because the responsibilities aren't clearly assigned. He's actually talking about Pearl Harbor, where people identified all kinds of people who didn't do what they should have done, but where there were problems also that the responsibility for making sure, for example, the information got out to Pearl Harbor wasn't assigned anywhere.
Okay, but we're talking about September 11th, and I'm asking you in relationship to the context in which you made the comment. My time has expired, but I have to close by saying that I had hoped that we could focus on September 11th, and that the purpose of this hearing was September 11th, and it was not to expand it to justify to saying, but if we could have this war in Iraq, that it would make some difference as to what happened on September 11th. Certainly, we have to be proactive and go out there and co-opt any attempt to attack our country. But it isn't about that, and we were trying to be respectful of you and confining our questions to September 11th and how we can do better in the future. And I'm just disappointed that the Secretary didn't come, but you came and read his statement to another committee about a different subject that was not the specific focus of our hearing. I'm glad you came.
I thought the focus of this hearing was, in fact, to talk about what can be learned about September 11th to prevent attacks in the future. And the statement I gave you is full of what I think are lessons learned from September 11th that can help us to prevent attacks in the future.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Secretary.